Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
This is our YouTube channel. Subscribe to this channel and give this video a like.
Also, check out our podcast. We just had David Shaw on the show down below in the description.
Yeah, and we talked to David Shaw about one of the greatest college football players ever, John, Reggie Bush, who on Wednesday told Colin Cowherd he can't lie. He would love to have his Heisman back now that he is allowed to associate once again with USC. The 10-year ban is over. And I don't know about you. This guy deserves his Heisman as much as anybody else who has ever deserved a Heisman Trophy. And he deserves to be introduced as Heisman Trophy winner Reggie Bush.
Completely agree, Guy. I think he's on the short list of the last 2 decades of players that you immediately think of in college football. Him, Vince Young, Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel. I mean, I think there's probably 4 or 5 names that immediately jump to the top. And if you notice, typically it's quarterbacks. And to me, he is the definitive player. When you say Pete Carroll, USC, that era, to me, he's the first player I think of. I would imagine the majority of human beings that are college football fans, when you say Pete Carroll, USC, that dominant run and that dominant era, I think he is just synonymous with the program and the run and just college football. I think he has some of the most, when you show his highlights, it brings up the good feelings you have as a lover of the sport.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they've kind of attempted to reconcile what's always felt a little bit of a bizarre situation that didn't parallel a lot of other situations in college football.
Yeah, excessive, over the top. The other thing when you're dealing with NCAA violations, you're usually dealing not with the athlete being the primary, air quotes, criminal, right? These are 18, 19, 20-year-old people who are not usually the ones in control of the NCAA rule violations.
Totally.
By the way, I'd probably add Tim Tebow. If we said in the 2000s who are the definitive college football players, I go Reggie, Vince Young, Tebow.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I mean, here's the other thing about Reggie Bush. It's like he got in trouble for breaking rules, but not only is Reggie just a definitive college football player of the era, I think he's one of the most inspirational college football players of the era in terms of doing good for the sport, right? Like David Shaw in that conversation you mentioned told us Christian McCaffrey wore number 5 because of David Shaw. There are college football players right now who are too young to really remember Reggie, who view Reggie as their favorite player. Now, maybe it's because they're SoCal guys, and I've talked to a couple of them, Southern California kids who were too young to remember Reggie's prime, but Reggie's their hero because Reggie's still involved down there. He did have a good NFL career. He is, like, if we just drew a line, good for college football, bad for college football, Reggie Bush is really good for college football and the connection to youth who still, despite the fact they kind of missed him, view him as one of the titans of the sport, rightly so.
I think when you bring up the other 2 names of the 2000s, you're right, Tim Tebow and Vince Young. And they're synonymous as just all-time great college football players. You could argue Tim Tebow, there would be a legitimate argument he's the most accomplished SEC player, or one of them ever, right? Multiple national championships, the Heisman, his career speaks for itself. At Florida, same with VY. Took Texas to a championship, beat one of the greatest, you could argue the greatest college football team we'd ever seen, back-to-back national championships. They were undefeated and took them out in the Rose Bowl. But what makes Reggie unique is that unlike those guys, like Vince Young's NFL career was terrible. Tim Tebow's basically didn't exist. Now, he did win a playoff game, which is weird, but it was very short-lived. Reggie played in the NFL for 11 years, Guy. 11 years. 36 rushing touchdowns. He had 18 receiving touchdowns. And that was before running backs got the ball thrown to him a lot. But we still remember him as a college football player. Right, I think sometimes when you're just a Vince Young or, some of those Oklahoma quarterbacks over the years, like in the 90s, early 2000s, that was the peak. This guy played 11 years in the league, made a ton of cash, played in playoff games, was a member of the Saints team that, won the Super Bowl. And when you think Reggie Bush, you say USC. I think that speaks to how great guy, he played on the Saints, the Dolphins, the Lions, the Niners, and the Bills. It's not like he just played for one team. Like, he bounced around. He had arguably his best season of his career with either the Miami Dolphins or the Detroit Lions. And you still just think USC football. You think USC cutting across the field at the Coliseum, dark nights at Washington or Oregon State in the fog, making fucking crazy things happen in punt returns. It really speaks to how great because unlike these other guys, like you'd go, oh yeah, failed in the NFL. Oh yeah, wasn't an NFL player. Reggie Bush was an NFL player. Now, did he live up to being the second overall pick? No. But did he have an 11-year, not a cup of coffee, an 11-year career? And we go, USC football, when you say his name, it shows you how powerful his impact was when he was there with Pete for those 3 years.
Yeah. ESPN, as of recording this, the ESPN documentary about Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, Long Gone Summer, hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
I was like 12, 13 that year, and I collected every Sports Illustrated with them on the cover. Like, I remember we went and saw Sammy Sosa play. I loved that. That year was incredible. That summer was amazing for me, just as a sports fan. But I can never look back, like, after everything that came after all of it involving those guys and just baseball in general in the steroid era, I can't quite look at it the same. It doesn't take my joy, but it kind of does just change it for me. And it can't ever, my memories of what 98 was like are different than how I view it now. They inherently change their bodies. Like that kind of cheating is one thing. And I wouldn't even Reggie Bush didn't cheat. They broke rules. Rules were broken. But Reggie falls into the category of, I know what I saw. You can tell me other people did whatever it is that they did. I know what I saw, and I can't unsee what I saw with Reggie Bush. I know what I saw with McGwire and Sosa, but I do kind of unsee it because it wasn't what it appeared to be. Reggie Bush was everything he appeared to be, right? None of that was fake. That was real. It was he was an unstoppable force. And that, NCAA, and here's the other thing is, like, you would say, well, the steroid era, the pitchers were doing it, all the other hitters were doing it, so it was an even playing field, or the way people talk about the Tour de France. It's like, yeah, but they are changing kind of physically who they are, right? College sports, you could say, like, what was happening with Reggie Bush that wasn't happening with everybody else? Everybody else. And he was just purely who he was, which is what he was awarded the Heisman for.
The best player that year, but arguably one of the best players college football has ever seen.
Yeah.
I also think it speaks to why USC people, and definitely us on the West Coast, are kind of like, how does this punishment? Remember Cam Newton went to Auburn. There was a 6-figure sum paid to his father that built a church. Johnny Manziel, remember, over a period of time was getting in a lot of trouble. Again, I that doesn't bother me. I don't care. But Johnny Manziel, remember, was signing things, likeness, which will soon be part of the vernacular in college football. Won't even be weird. But at the time, and it was like, oh, just slap on the wrist. If for some reason Reggie Bush deals with an agent, which literally every junior in college football who's that good is dealing with, maybe take some money early, clearly does. But it's like, how do you pick? He gets banned for 10 years and his Heisman Trophy stolen. It never added up to me. And like you said, it had zero impact on football. Zero. Literally none. I mean, he was unstoppable. I still think college football-wise, given how big their games were and given the target on their back, right? Christian McCaffrey had an unreal season. And Stanford was really good, but it wasn't quite the same. Even Cam's Heisman Trophy season, it was out of nowhere. By the time Reggie's junior year, they were the New England Patriots of college football.
They were,
right?
Until they lost to if they'd beaten Texas in the Rose Bowl, they were going to be the greatest college football team of all time, right? That's what we talked about.
And it would have been one of the greatest 3-year stretches in college football history, correct?
Back-to-back Heisman winners with Leinart and Reggie.
2.5 national championships. I'll give them the full for the split, but I mean, they had dominated for 3 straight years.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm just glad that we don't even need to pretend. And you and I always talk about, like, I'm not going to unsee what I saw. Like, you can take Calipari's Final Four away. Like, I watched this team. Like, it happened. You can take a Heisman Trophy winner or what, away from them. Like, listen, every year when they line up and they announce the new Heisman Trophy, like, I see all those names, and in fairness, some of them are older than our generation, so they don't quite resonate. But even the newer, the Eddie Georges, Charles, I mean, some of those guys, like Reggie belongs shoulder to shoulder next to those men.
Mm-hmm.
And even for as great as Tebow and Johnny, for example, guys that have Heisman trophies, I just know what I saw with Reggie, and I think he's better, or every bit as good. And I'd say,
sorry.
Yeah, he does. You know, I'd say him and Cam's one season was just like kind of like that. I felt Reggie's career felt like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say he deserves to be in that room with all those other Heisman Trophy winners every year at the ceremony.
For sure.
It's not just about the trophy. It's about if you tiered Heisman Trophy winners, he would be on the top tier.
Yeah.
We're not talking about just anybody. Like, oh, they took Jason White's Heisman. That's bullshit. Give him his Heisman back, right? They didn't. But the point is,
that's a good example. He's not a forgettable Heisman. Not that there really are.
He's a face of the sport.
Yeah.
In a sport that's operated the way that he's getting punished for operating. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying let's just treat him like everyone else gets treated.
Completely agree.
When he's done so many things right. All right. We urge all of you that have watched this video to refer to Reggie Bush as Heisman Trophy winner Reggie Bush. It makes his name a little long, but it's worth it.
Congrats on the Heisman, Reggie.
Congrats on the Heisman, Reggie. Like this video.